And yeah, welcome to episode 3. Joining me, as you may have already noticed, we have Corcoran Smith. Corcoran, if you'd like to take a moment to introduce yourself.
Wizard Gandalf. Hi folks, I'm Corcoran. I'm a solution architect at Slalom Consulting, based out of London. Had a fair amount of exposure with Checkov and the bridge crew folks, so I'm here to just be robustly optimistic about how things are going in the codified security space, and just share some anecdotes as well, obviously, which is what I do best.
Definitely looking forward to the anecdotes. And thank you very much for joining us as our guest this episode. And obviously, Barak, we have failed miserably to keep up with the bang on trend Halloween hat thing, but welcome as always.
I love that.
I'm going to post you my spare one. I've got a spare one. I'm going to send it to your new offices.
Absolutely. We were actually thinking, the other day about maybe kind of codified security, what you call them, the mask, not the masks, but almost like the skiing things that protect you from the cold, that
yes.
Also seem to be good for COVID these days. Hey ho. Right, so without further ado, welcome one and all, and again, apologize for the off start. Thank you for joining us, those that are following us in the chat as well. It's great to have you on board. Just a little bit of housekeeping to start with. This is designed to be a community call. We've started doing them the past 3 weeks at a pretty regular cadence. We have topics, we have interesting anecdotes, we have hats, and we probably have alcohol. But the whole point of it is, anything you want to talk about within the community, any issues you want to raise, any conversations you want to have about the direction of Checkov or RIM, or ideas you want, or things you want to discuss about pull requests or issues, we would love to be interrupted on this call. So, if you want to go ahead and, hey, 2-star, hey, everyone in the chat, suggest ideas, suggest topics. We would love to go wildly off tangent, as they make up the best community calls.
Dangerous.
Absolutely. So, by way of welcome, that ticks that box. And then quickly, before we get into the meat of it, and kind of take some ideas from the community and kind of chat with Corcoran, just some, as always, community thanks. So we have, in the 2 weeks since the last meeting, so many new faces on our contributor board, whether it be people raising an issue to let us know something's gone on. My favorite kind of issue, the people that actually bother to come back and post their working solution if they've raised an issue and then, found a way around it. And then, rather than that XKCD comic where you're kind of looking at an issue from 10 years ago going, what did you see? Tell me what you saw.
Don't worry, I fixed it.
Yeah, don't worry, fixed it. Thanks.
Cheers for that.
Exactly.
Come back next week. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So, thank you so much to everyone, be it PRs, be it issues, be it, doc updates. We really, really, as always, appreciate it. And if you need to get hold of us on Twitter, or at slack.bridgecrew.io, and come and join our happy little codified community room, where we will try and give you all the love and attention. And then just quickly as well, kind of looking at what's been going on. If you missed it in the past couple of weeks, I appreciate, you all have many, many things in your CI/CD pipeline, and we are just a couple of them. So absolutely no worries if you've not seen all of these, but lots of kind of little fixes for evolving checks as kind of cloud providers change, or as new options get made available in kind of Terraform language. There's also been a load of work going on behind the scenes with Barak and Nimrod, kind of improving some of the cloud formation scanning and cloud formation capabilities within Checkov as well. So you'll have seen a whole host of kind of merged PRs that we haven't really covered here. We got a really interesting idea from Twitter of kind of testing for policies that don't allow access to things, but maybe lock users completely out of S3 buckets, which would require AWS master credentials, which you shouldn't be handing out because they're not ephemeral and like no one should ever be using them. So we kind of considered that, and yeah, that's actually a valid security thing to stop happening, because you shouldn't need, you know, AWS, you know, root keys to root creds to dig you out of a hole. And yeah, lots of kind of fun PRs, both by the Bridge Crew team and by the community. A couple of open issues still, some of which require a little bit more kind of conversation, because they are looking at things like, you know, how to skip a module or how to skip a custom module. And as we'll kind of cover later on in this call, you know, we've got some big changes coming up, or big changes we want to suggest to the community around being able to kind of directly scan modules that are being used within Terraform. Barak's going to talk to us about some pretty cool stuff he wants to do with Terraform plan scanning. So some open for a reason, and some open just because we need to get to them. So you know, do ping us if it's urgent, or do ping us with any ideas, or you know, find us on Slack, and we'll do our best to get to those open issues. But thank you to everyone for the pull requests and all the good community stuff. Before we get into kind of topics, again, just to raise the fact this is a community call, I'm going to put this here. We're going to come back to exactly the same slide in a few minutes time. But yeah, if you want to cover something, if you have a burning desire to discuss, you know, deeply the technical architecture of an issue or a pull request, please do let us know. And we'll definitely come back to that. And maybe just send a link to the Zoom, and you can jump on and tell us what you think. But that takes us very, very nicely to deep breaths. That takes us very, very nicely to re-welcoming our guest, Corcoran. Thank you so much for joining us. And yes, as you said, you know, you're pretty familiar with working with Bridge Crew and kind of the Codified security community, and kind of see a lot of, you know, recurring cloud security issues, concerns, you know, recurring discussions within your role as at Slalom Consulting. So it'd be great to get your insights, and you know, what's keeping your customers awake at night when it comes to kind of cloud security and infrastructure as code.
Firstly, I miss that version of me on that picture. I mean, that hair is strong. That jacket is strong. Yeah, so
it's good hair game.
Yeah, it is. I do miss that hair. It's not because it's missing, and it's not hidden what it is. Yeah, I think probably you know, the last couple of 6 months, whatever, we've kind of taken things forward with a particular client specifically. I think one of the things that is like a lack of joined upness, where the security teams are saying, "Oh, you know, we have this wonderful product which is, you know, all the way over here, and we're just it's just not quite ready yet. But you have to adhere to some of the policies that we haven't even written down, that are special and unique to the organization or the business as well. So please do adhere to those policies, and you know, at some point we will provide you with a single pane of glass for you to not even be able to see, because you know, we're the security professionals and you're just a project team. So that's something that we are still seeing a lot of, where I think security is, you know, there are some amazing people in the security space that, you know, absolutely, of course, but you know, back in the enterprise, there's still a lot of people who are kind of still finding their way about what cloud security means, and then being kind of really unsure about passing over, I think, some of that responsibility to and that's where, certainly for us at Slalom, we got really excited about seeing Checkov quite early on, because actually it gave us that assurance. So we could just go to a security team at a time and we're like, actually, we can fit. We've got all these CIS benchmarks like qualified through the code. So yeah, you don't have to check everything that we've written. You don't have to click about. You don't have to run all your config rules. You can just kind of, we have this assurance. You can kind of let us crack on. But still, enterprises are kind of like, they want you to automate everything up to a point, and then they want to be able to have those manual controls, and you just don't get that full security CI/CD pipeline of goodness, because there are still people trying to install agents for X and Y products, which again, as I said, you then don't get to see what that looks like. So that's still a real issue, is that disjointed activities between giving projects and giving teams of people who actually understand how not to lock themselves out of S3, and get visibility on their code. So yeah, I think that's probably still quite a big one for today.
Do you see kind of those agents as a problem, or do you see not surfacing the results those agents kind of produce back to the development teams as the problem?
Yeah, I think that people still view, config management and IaaS as a target state, especially config management. And really that's not, like, if the mentality is let's get to config management, let's have these agents and let it report back to a dashboard, and then there's some sort of agile process that someone raises a ticket somewhere and maybe eventually you'll get notified in 3 to 5 days. That's still a huge loop. That's like half a sprint of loop. And again, because of things like licensing, then project teams don't actually ever get visibility onto their parts of their estate straight away. They don't want to drive what's inside of that type of platform, but they should at least have a view on that platform, and that shouldn't come at a cost. And I think usually there's a discussion around licensing, either per seat, per person, per team, and that's always a barrier, because then people have literally no visibility onto even a GUI to see what's good or what's been done poorly. So I think that's a bummer.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Licensing being the barrier, because if but also the fact that if you're a security engineer or just an engineer on a DevOps team, like the kind of state that you mentioned there, where you kind of have the security team that is still kind of going, we want to enforce this, and we have these agents, and these report back into our dashboards, and we'll tell you if you're compliant or not. Do you see that in teams that kind of tell you they are doing like DevSecOps, or that are doing kind of the full DevOps thing, or is that like more traditional teams with separate QA and things like that?
Yeah,
sorry, and if that's a question you'd rather not answer, then that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, doing the DevOps. Yeah, we're doing 15 DevOps in our team today.
A million DevOps.
Exactly. It's just whatever number you want, just we'll hit that target. Yeah, I think security engineers are really overwhelmed. Like there's 100 projects and there's 1 million people, and then there's a bit of enterprise in the background, and I think those folks are unsung heroes where they're trying to get stuff done, and it's really hard for them because it's difficult for them to manage onboarding tools and teams, and then those tools and teams don't have enough time to have access to best practice or the mono repo with all of the Terraform modules in, all that kind of thing. So there's still a kind of like I think as Bridge Crew have pointed out before, there's the sticking point now really is the number of people that we've got on the ground to free up teams to do the work. And that's why things like Checkov are great, because you just hit it and teams can then get on with it. And they have all that, accountability through the tooling to understand what the problems are and how to resolve them. So there's still a long way to go, I think, in terms of attitudes. But I think that'll be fixed next year, the year after. Christmas.
This tomorrow. It's always tomorrow. By the time the lockdowns all end and the pubs reopen,
sorry, we'll have pure DevSecOps.
Promised I wasn't going to make a COVID joke there.
For everyone.
Too soon. Proper DevSecOps for everyone. And a couple of people on the stream kind of agree and pose question. 2-star says, yeah, the prioritization and keeping up with the chaos is rough. Two-Star, are you coming from kind of a security team or the development side that's kind of mindful of security? Just be interested. And then Desi UK says he also thinks, or she also thinks, the lack of training and visibility on such kind of left shift approach is also a hindrance. So, you know, how do we get started? Where do we start? Which is, you know, I think one of the things I like about Checkov, it's like you can throw this at your CI/CD pipeline, use GitHub or GitLab or Circle CI's free compute, and you will have more security posture than you have today in front of your developers.
Yeah, I mean, it might be on fire once you actually realize that there is a fire. So be careful how, you know, if you open the dumpster, be careful to at least test it for heat first, like in the classic movie Backdrafts. Probably people haven't seen that because they're not old like me. Yeah, I think that's probably true. I think getting started, there's platforms now like Rangeforce. Is it Rangeforce? Is that right? Don't want to send you off to something that's like Rangeforce. It might not be. Yeah, Rangeforce. They do a whole bunch now of, you know, DevSecOps type tooling and type training, which is quite useful, where they're combining stuff like, you know, top 10 OWASP vulnerabilities and get you to actually spin up a VM, go through those things and understand why those things are inherently insecure and so on. So there is resource if you have a look around. So chat to people like Scott Piper on Twitter as well. Summit Root, I publish a whole load of stuff. Bridge Crew, you're smashing out some decent blogs as well. There's a lot of stuff going on, and I think there's probably a shift away in perception of security people being those like jerks, where we're a lot more like, have as much information as you need, like please take this problem away from me. Because once you empower people to do those things, then it becomes much easier to have those conversations.
Yeah, and I would really like to give a shout out to Scott Piper. I think that he's really a thought leader in that space. He also, if you look for a space to start with on DevSecOps or cloud security, he have defined a roadmap of 10 steps that you should start with when getting a new account. And actually, there are a couple of other people that you should probably follow too, like the VP of Security of Netflix, who's also leading the way on a lot of innovative ideas before anyone. Yeah.
If you find a link to those steps, Brock, I will put them in the
yeah, sure.
Twitch as well for anyone that wants to follow along. But yeah, Scott was the as we were mentioning earlier, the guy on Twitter that was like, hey, like you should be thinking about like protecting your S3 from lockouts as well as just locking down security in the first place. So that's now a check in Checkov, which was kind of fun to write because it required kind of the opposite logic to most Checkov checks. So yeah, that was kind of cool. By the way, Desi UK is Alex, ex-Slalom UK, who says hi. And we also have Rob Eden. Thank you very much, Rob, for joining us. We would love to chat about your plans for TF-VARs at some point, either this episode or next. But you know, reading the issue and the ideas there, that is super exciting. Kind of goes hand in hand with something, Barak. I don't know whether this is maybe a good time to kind of jump around a bit and talk about that, but the idea for also kind of, you know, we want kind of TF-VAR support in static scanning, right? But you were also thinking about what if Checkov was also useful at the planning stage for TF-Plan in CI/CD?
Definitely. So in Checkov, there is an inherited limitation. It only can analyze entities that are in the code, but the plan file also contains things that are in environment variables or injected through the Terraform command line. So if you have a variable that is defined only upon provisioning, that would be the best opportunity to run Checkov against the plan file and say, hey, is that variable really being implemented in my environment? So let's take an example. Let's say that we have an environment in dev or QA or staging that we do not want to have all of the logging and auditing turned on. So we have a condition. If environment is not prod, turn off logging and auditing because it's an ephemeral environment, it's a development environment. We don't want to get the AWS bill for all of those logs and storage. So you decide to inject that through a Terraform command, but you really want to verify that on production, logging and auditing is really turned on. So one way to do that is to have a different module with different parameters, which you can run bridge crew on top and identify those parameters. Or if you're using a command line, you can actually, what we want to implement, and I hope to implement that in the next 2 weeks, is the ability to scan a plan file. So a plan file will contain the calculated value from the command line, which will enable Checkov to run the same policies just on a JSON file instead of a TF HCL format, and verify that you have this example of auditing turned on your production account. So I guess the plan files are more like a dynamic analysis because you have a running environment, then statically analyzing the code. So it's somewhere in between. It gives it might give Checkov and the Checkov users more power and control over those steps. Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And how there is love for that on the Twitch stream. So yes, new functionality checking plans are good. How do you see kind of the TF bar support that we've been talking about for a while, and that Rob was kind of discussing on an issue of looking, potentially looking into? How do you see that? Is there going to be kind of an expectation that with static analysis, like variable rendering is going to be as good as it can be, and then kind of if you want to go further, you kind of enable Checkov in the pipeline stage with a plan file? And how do you see those two kind of working well together?
Yeah, so really, I think that you should verify policies in the same policies in various stages on the pipeline. So you can verify them very early on with pre-commit on your endpoint, and that way you don't have to have access keys that might be required to run even a plan command. So if you have sensitive data, run Checkov as a pre-commit, and it will statically analyze your code. If you want to run Checkov over more data, meaning giving it more visibilities by showing it the plan file, run it in your CI/CD pipeline after the plan phase. And if you want to run it post-deployment, you can use either the cloud vendor tools like AWS Config or Bridge Crew or others to analyze runtime configuration status. And the best way to manage this whole pipeline craziness of policies, because you have like 400 policies on your endpoint, another 400 policies on your pipeline, another 400 on the cloud provider. It's really a lot of data to look on. You should really, the best thing to do would be to identify the drifts and the differences between the different environments and see what's really stopping you from being productive and having the good security measures in your code.
Yeah, that was the argument I was getting into initially back in January, was we were seeing integration testing or BDD testing, and it's like, this is already 25, 35 an hour into a build. So that's where Checkov always was for me pure brilliance, because it's right back on the left where it should be. I think you need things like conf test, OPA, Bridge Crew, policies, code, possibly what we're doing with TF out. I think that's going to be really important. But I fully support anything that happens on a developer's workstation. It gives them a little slap on there. They're not doing things in the best way. Rather than waiting for Jenkins to spit out all of your secrets onto a XML document, which you then convert into JSON, and deep joy all round, isn't it? Especially in an enterprise setting where people are like, oh yeah, we're using Jenkins, so we're doing agile, and you just want to go into a dark room and be alone with your thoughts.
just cry a little bit.
Jenkins.
Yeah. I think that in enterprise environment, one of these struggles is you don't want to go through 2 MFAs, 3 VPNs, and had all of your time being burned just to get really a result on whether your Terraform code is being compliant or not.
Absolutely.
It's too much. Like it should be right like unit test. It should be like you should be able to run it locally, get a result like that, and move on.
On that exact respect, I was reading kind of and trying to create kind of a local runner for GitHub Actions. There's a couple of great open source tools out there which basically emulate the GitHub Actions environment quite well, but kind of don't do certain things like, artifact storage and things like that. So you can get quite far. And I would say there is something really nice about having to write one set of deployment files rather than kind of make files for local and then something for something else. So I'd like to see kind of more development on that side of things, because, as those tools improve, like you said, you're going to be able to get the fast feedback potentially locally, rather than waiting for GitHub Actions to kind of spool up a VM and kind of do all that fun stuff.
It is cool that we're seeing the what I saw someone mention, or the phrase I used the other day was the GitHubification.
Oh, can we put a hashtag in front of that?
GitHubification of security. So yeah, the runners are obviously doing a lot of that. It sucks if you're using, GitHub Enterprise, but I think as more people are moving to GitHub proper, I think there's also power in that as well, right?
I kind of want to do like a BBC Radio 1 thing where I say other Git endpoints are available.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Other incorrect tooling can be used.
It can be used. No, it's really interesting.
And sorry, and to go back to what you were saying earlier as well, I think that another pain point as well that we're seeing is just the sheer number of tools that you have to take to every engagement, where people are like, oh yeah, we have one tool for this, and then we have another tool for that, and then we have another tool for this, and another tool for that, and then just so many tools. And using Checkov as a shining example of one thing that fixes a lot of problems, where it started off with a bit of CIS and AWS, and it's now doing serverless and Kubernetes and all the good stuff. So as well, we're seeing the number of tools, I think, come down from many to one. So that's also something else that we're experiencing, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you think the number of tests, the number of tools, is because someone has decided that they are going to deal with compliance requirement A, B, and C by using this tool, and then that's just set in stone forever, even if kind of a tool that comes along after it for compliance reason 1, 2, and 3 can also do that, but it's like, well, we've always used that for that piece, so we'll just carry on and pile them up? Or is it more complex than that?
There's a Docker image and it's in there now, so and it's too hard for us to go back and find the documentation that doesn't exist to take it apart and put it back together. So even for large orgs, they're just kind of banging these tools together, and then someone hasn't written a documentation, because writing documentation is super boring, and nobody wants to do it, and it never gets done. So that's another issue. So it then becomes quite difficult to move away from those tools when new tooling is available. And then, you end up with 15 tools to do 15 different things, which again is just awful. So the fewer tools that we can use to solve these problems, for me as well, is so powerful.
Yeah, makes sense. And especially like even if you do have to use a handful of tools, like now that we are all using kind of free runners where every single or every single step is its own kind of firecracker style, microkernel VM that boots up, and then you have to re-download all your dependencies. Like that does, if you're not using kind of the new GitHub caching stuff, that does take a while to pip install or npm install universe for your million dependencies and things like that.
What we need is like a Lambda layer for Checkov. That would be super cool next, right? I saw that Hashi just launched. He's like, no. It's like, no. It's already dark. What are you doing?
Ferric's like, he just knows that issue is going to get like, do you want to assignee someone? Yeah, all right.
I'm like imagining this GitHub issue coming and all of those votes and
immediately right now, people are just hammering it in.
Yeah,
and all of those are like fake accounts of Corcoran just trolling me.
I mean, they got it done before. I saw the Hashi one for Vault, so that's that was really the inspiration for that hand grenade.
Well, I must have missed that. They wanted a Lambda layer on Vault.
Yeah, so they've written a Lambda layer integrator now into Vault, so you don't have to call anything fancy when you're trying to call Vault. You just basically put in a Lambda layer, which points to a HashiCorp account, which then pulls in the Vault runner as part of running Lambda. It's pretty cool. It's interesting.
Yeah, I love Lambdas, but I think that the main thing that is broken with it, and you have to do all of those workarounds, is just because you don't have a Docker wrapping like you have in Azure. You have this zip file, so you have to manage your dependencies in a weird way through layers, which is a very non-starter because you have to work hard on writing more and more code. And now we have the Lambda extension where you can inject code before and after. And really, if it was just a Docker,
just an EC2 instance, and that would fix
Lambda
forever.
No, I wish it was something like between ECS Fargate task and the Lambda. Like just the packaging of Lambda is just killing so many opportunities for very good integrations from stuff like Checkov to be easy to integrate and like a layer, and also other stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Like adding Lambda layers, even in like serverless, it's like, why do you not just point it to a Docker build file rather than I have to zip up and put it in this directory and then it will go and unzip it for. Yeah, I kind of agree. And I've not played with the new. I'm guessing Corcoran, this thing for Vault is the new. What's the word I'm looking at? It's basically the sidecars, right, for. Lambdas through that new API they've surfaced. I can't remember the name of. Have you experienced with that? Does it have the same kind of weird, quirky packaging, or?
I haven't, but I definitely think we should add it in onto Checkov sort of Sunday morning. Sunday lunchtime at the latest, if we can.
Next sprint.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. For those of you on the call, we missed completely my fault. I am not good with the whole Twitch studio thing. Clearly, thanks Angela, by the way, who is tirelessly working in the background to keep this call up and running and making sure everyone can hear and everyone can speak and providing links. So thank you very much. But there was this quite funny moment where Corcoran was explaining the lengths he went to modify his hat so that he could wear his headphones, and how it was in the sprint. There was a story assigned to it. There were a couple of story points. It ended very, very well, clearly.
And I have a backup hat as well, so I can fail back if I need to, which I know is not the right way to do things. I know we should be failing forward, but
could you do that with zero downtime though, or would you have to take the headphones off?
Yeah, worse still, I had to unplug this, and then I was like, "Oh, now I can't." I'm like, it was a moment of pure and adulterated idiocy on my part.
Pure joy. I mean, what else can we define as joy these days when we're stuck in our houses most days?
Very little. I mean, my head's so big, I never really get to wear a hat anyway. So this is really a big day for me.
Very, very happy for you. On your point of hair game with the profile picture, as I am in ever beautiful, sunny, practically tropical Manchester in the UK. The observant among you will notice I fully got caught in the rain before this meeting. So yeah, I could have actually done with that today. On that brief topic, consensus in the hat cluster. I mean, yeah, there we go. That's another PR. How do you create consensus in clusters of hats? And could you ever have a cluster of hats when only one can be atop the head?
That's a good question. Is it a cluster of hats? Surely it's just like a pile of hats. A throw of hats.
A rack of hats.
A rack of hats.
On this moment of nonsense, what are we all drinking, by the way?
Wow. I'm in the UK. There's this place called Bristol, which is not near London, and so there's Thatcher cider, which is the only cider. So I'm drinking that from Somerset from a can because I like to keep it super classy.
Yeah.
But I do recycle quite a lot, it should be said. So that's also good. So I'm doing my bit there for local small cider makers in the West Country.
Doing your part for the aluminium reserves of your local council.
As well, yes.
Yeah,
very
absolutely.
much so. Southwark Earth, they're so grateful that I live here to throw cider into the bins.
Well, we appreciate your effort there. I am drinking something that you could be confused is cider. It's not. It's actually just a Heineken that's gone really, really flat. Although it is quite cold, so it tastes pretty good.
Is that a Peugeot logo on that glass?
It's not. It's a Lauenbrau, but it kind of looks like Peugeot, doesn't it?
It very much does.
Yeah, it's a Lauenbrau glass. But
nice.
No, I see what you mean. Yeah, it came free with the car.
Don't drink and drive, kids. Don't drink and drive.
No, bad idea. What about you, Brock? What are you on today?
I have a local one called Negev. So Negev is the largest desert in this desert country. So that's an amber ale called Negev. I really feel like we should start to advertise beers as the sponsors. I don't know.
Why not? As long as we drink responsibly, I think everyone's cool with it. As long as there's no name calling.
We're only having one with a very sensible intellectual technical chat. I think that's how beer's meant to be enjoyed.
We are starting with one.
Starting with one. There's a line of a country song that says, "I don't drink no more, but I don't drink no less," which I thought was quite good. Yeah, I usually come with a much fruitier, bolder, some ridiculous like triple IPA with like all the hops.
Oh, you go all in.
Kind of letting the side down today with the Heineken, but it's quite refreshing.
You're not subscribed to something like Beer 53 or whatever it is, where they ship you.
I've actually started making my own.
Oh, come on then.
Short
version.
So the last one I've just brewed was called Lua Deeper. So because it was a double IPA, and it was hopped with Citra and Simcoe. And long story short, we brewed far too little of it, because by the time you've bottled some up and given it to friends and let people that want to try it, turns out 2.5 gallons only gets you about 7 pints, and it's just gone. So, RIP. On to the next brew.
Brewer Kahlua.
There we go. More beer pun names for my next brew, please. Answers on a postcard.
My old man used to do homebrew back in the 80s when it was less socially acceptable. And there's a tall tale how he basically left the 7 gallons or whatever in the kitchen. And there's a tall tale where my mum she went to collect me and my sister from school. We came home and we had a boxer dog, and the dog had worked out how to twist the tap on the bottom of the beer. And so she came back, and the dog had obviously done this, and most of the beer was obviously on the floor, but then a lot of it was clearly inside the dog, who was then vomiting fairly a lot. So my mum phoned my dad in like panic mode. She's like, oh my god, like Tosca's drunk all the homebrew, like what are we gonna do? And she's pissed and blah blah blah. And then my dad's in the office and he's like, lads, like the dog's got the homebrew, like what should we do? The dog's drunk. And someone just piped up and said, well, after I've had 19 pints, I like to go for a curry. Oh, that's a good homebrew tale.
Was the dog
in the 80s?
Was the dog okay? That's all we need to know.
I mean, ultimately she did die of liver cirrhosis, but I don't know if it's related to that one incident or just being brought up in Birmingham generally. It's hard to say.
Different time.
A very different time. Yeah.
Oh, bless.
I actually wanted to share. So on another topic,
Yes.
not related to dogs getting drunk, I actually wanted to share actually two interesting stuff that are coming up. One, I know that Rob. I hope that I'm not pushing Rob too much, but I know that Rob is working on modules support in Checkov. So the ability to either analyze local modules or dynamically downloading them from the registry is something that Rob, which is an amazing community member, has been working on. So it will enable you to run stuff like composition analysis from concepts of application security, just on infrastructure security. What does it mean? So let's say that you're using a third-party Terraform module from the registry, like the popular EC2 module or the popular S3 module or VPC, or even a third-party module that just spins up an Airflow instance if you're a data pipeline group, data engineering group. You will be able to automatically analyze all of the stuff inside the module if you import it within Terraform using Checkov. And then you will get an output of, hey, there is a third-party module that you've been using and the current configuration is not safe. You can either fix the module, suppress it, or move forward. But really what it means that Checkov will enable us as a community is just to go through different modules and fix the internet, which is
fix other people's rubbish. I mean,
yeah.
Always use safety when using other people's modules, kids.
Yeah.
Like consume but validate, or
Yes.
some weird mangled version of
if
that.
Copying and pasting from Stack Overflow, please run Checkov on that module first.
Always check off your modules.
Always.
Yeah. Always check out your modules. And there is actually another one that is super interesting on a similar topic. There is a library called Terraform Offensive. I will post the link in the chat. That they have demonstrated that specific use case in so many ways. So Terraform Offensive have created, I think, 5 or 6 Terraform modules that eventually enables account takeover, because during the Terraform deployment, they either send the access keys and spread them to a C2C server, or just compromise your IAM, or turn some stuff to public and leaving your account open. So Terraform Offensive is a very interesting module. Actually, Checkov cannot validate all of the things there, because some of the things are using null.
It's too naughty.
Sorry, not safe for work. Terraform modules.
Yeah, it's not safe for. Do not deploy them on a production account. So the thing that is nice there, Checkov will identify infrastructure issues, but the Terraform Offensive modules are also doing API calls or running null resources, which are running dynamic scripts. So you won't be able to identify those using static analysis, which is another super interesting thing to see, because not everything can be like super developer friendly and can be caught on the endpoint. Some things only a cloud monitoring solution would be able to find if they are super dynamic. So Terraform Offensive is a super interesting project. And actually another thing, I don't know how much to spoil on tomorrow, but another thing that is interesting that is coming up is the ability to right size an IAM policy, which is coming up. So if you have, for example, an IAM policy that has S3 star, EC2 star, and IAM star, which means an admin, and you're not reading those, the right size one will re-minimize those to the action being used. So it's an interesting feature that is coming up tomorrow.
Why is IAM still so hard? Like, every reInvent, I'm like, this year they will fix IAM and they'll make it usable. No, still no.
I really don't know, but I'm comparing that to Active Directory, to Windows Active Directory.
That's a different conversation for another day.
Was that Active Directory controllers before or after the kind of one line root credential exploit from last month?
Yeah. Dropping your NDSU tool.
Yeah, that was a fun one. No, I completely agree. I think that's why we're seeing an uptick in kind of interest in Air IAM as well, just because it's not easy. And even people that do it every day, like you get to the point where you know your end state, you know what you are trying to give access to. Like I was trying the other day to give access to a single role that could only do things to one specific Cognito user pool. And like, sometimes you use resource, sometimes you don't, sometimes you use capability restrictions, sometimes you, like, there's no kind of hard and fast way of doing that across the product set. And I think that's the confusing thing about it. Like, there's all these constructs and, you know, like they say, there's a million ways to do things in Python. In AirIM, there's a million ways, but only one correct way for each individual product. And I think that's the complexity there.
And let's not even start talking about IAM pass role star as well, because you know that's just a waking nightmare that doesn't matter where you go, you just check it, you're like, there it is. Oh, there's that beautiful, there's that beautiful role privilege escalation that I can now just bang through all these accounts. Yeah, there's, I think Rowan Udell's done a decent blog recently about pass role star, so folks definitely, I'll dig that out, definitely check that out, because it's kind of like, oh, this is fine, and then obviously it's not fine, it's the opposite of fine. So
yeah, that sounds like a really nice easy Checkov check if we're not catching that already.
I'm just going to type, there we go.
Computers are hard. I completely agree. Just to comment in the stream chat, I went on a rant actually, like a couple of years ago, when, you know, Kubernetes and then Lambdas on top of Kubernetes, like Knative and things like that, and it's like we're adding all of these actually more useful, more kind of cross-cloud, more cross-environment layers on top. But we're not getting rid of any of the layers underneath. Like, instead of consolidating them and collapsing them, like they're still built on VMs. And yeah, the VMs are getting smaller, but we still have like the KVM constructs and the Zen constructs and the, you know, VMware constructs kind of. And then below that, we still have all the constructs from managing like this. Like, can you imagine getting into IT now and having to learn like 50 layers instead of like 12 or 13? It's,
I mean, layer 8 is still the one that every time just, you know, what is happening on layer 8 and why is it happening so slowly?
Layer 7.5 finance, and then layer 8 people.
We have FinOps now, so FinOps solves all your problems.
Should solve that. Cool.
We can do an hour talking about Kubernetes if you like. I mean, I can do.
I would love to do the Kubernetes Power Hour on another episode. That sounds great.
There would be more beer and swearing though from me, 100% for sure.
Doesn't like spending their lives in YAML. Just on that, to close off that topic of modules, Barak, I think I got my wires crossed there between the module support and the TF-var support when we were talking about those earlier. But yes, if anyone in the community and you're listening, or you're watching this back, or you're watching the notes from the show that we always write up, if you are working on module support, I have some cycles in the next couple of weeks and would love to get involved or help split the load, or, you know, work on that as well. So please just @ me on a GitHub issue or a topic, or just find me in the Slack room, because that is super exciting.
Cool.
Awesome. I think if we very, very quickly, one other thing, actually, I think this might be a quick community show of hands. I liked this in its elegance and simplicity. There is an issue open. I have shared my screen. There we go. There's an issue open that's just like, we should break down the individual providers at the end of the output into, you know, which checks have been under which provider. So Terraform, CloudFormation, serverless, etc., and then the total at the end. everyone that agrees that that would be nice and readable, say aye. There we go. We'll take that. Awesome. And then just quickly coming back to, where's it gone? Where's my lovely, lovely slide deck that was previously open? There it is. I think we have kind of gone through the Checkov topics actually, which I want to get out of full screen right now. There we go. We covered TF-Lotters, we covered Barak's awesome plan scanning, we covered module link scanning. Yeah, we managed to get accidentally weaving through beer and hats and clustering and Kubernetes in and out of pretty much everything we wanted to talk about.
There's no one would be able to follow the logic because you'd have to have at least had one beer to.
Oh yeah. I mean, usually what I do afterwards is I go through and I take time slices, you know, time from, time to for each topic for our show notes. This one's going to be a little more difficult, I think.
Bring joy everywhere I go.
Yeah, for my own time spent in Camtasia, no, but I'm not complaining. This has been really fun. Do we have any winding down thoughts, Corcoran? Are there any kind of other major, you should watch out for this, we see it everywhere we go kind of topics? Or Barak, do you have any closing comments?
I don't think so. Thanks everybody.
Yeah, there's always Slack, so we're all in there, right? Just hit us up on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Slack.bridgecrew.io. If you're not already on there, if this is your first time seeing Bridge Crew or the Codified security team via Twitch, please do come and join us. We're really friendly, and you know, we don't always wear hats, but when we do, they are awesome. And what do we have? Oh yeah, we've been told that for the video highlight reel, there needs to be the times for the dog conversation as well. That has to be in there, so good to know. Well, without further ado, gentlemen, if that is everything we want to cover, Corcoran, thank you so much for joining us.
Cheers.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Barak, thank you as always for joining us and imparting your kind of infrastructure as code security and Checkov wisdom. And yes, that will conclude episode 3 of Codified Security. Join us next time. If you want to get involved, you know where to find us. And thank you so much, everyone. Cheers.